I'm Gavin Ashenden. I'm one of the four friends who make up the team Reclaiming Christendom. Can I introduce myself just very briefly before I give my introductory pitch? I'm English. I began by training to be a lawyer. Then I became an Episcopalian clergyman in the Church of England. And during that period, I became a theologian. I spent 25 years as a professor at a university and did a number of other things, including broadcasts for the BBC. And at one point for 10 years, they made me a chaplain to the Queen, which is where I became notorious because there came a point when I had to resign for speaking out, frankly, in public. And that's another story, and I look forward to telling it to you. But that just gives you a little bit of a background to who I am and why I might be involved. The four of us have put our heads together because we can see that we're at a serious moment when there's a big shift of culture. Culture is changing. You might say that ever since the scientific revolution, there's been a struggle between the Christian mind, the Christian heart, the Christian character of the West, which is what we call Christendom, and a certain secular alternative, materialism, atheism, agnosticism. We've been pitched in a battle with a sort of anti-Christian mentality for a good 200 years, and it's not been going very well. However, at this juncture, in the last decade or so, things have hotted up and they've become much more complicated. And what we find is that we're not just struggling with a culture of secularism and the lack of a metaphysical imagination. We've actually got four serious figures competing to dominate our culture, our public mind. One of the ways we can talk about this is to talk about, for example, neo-paganism, or we can talk about neo-Marxism, the woke, or we can talk about Islam, and we can talk about Christianity. The difficulty is that every time you mention one of these very big words, the first thing you do is have a big argument about what on earth you mean by it. And each of those labels is so complex, it's hard to get past first base. So what instead, if we look at it in a different way and see that what we have is the four founders of these movements attempting to gain our allegiance and the allegiance of the neighbors we live amongst. They would, of course, be Jesus. Jesus is the founder of the Catholic Church, the founder of Christendom. He's very well known, particularly as a swear word, but people have very little understanding of what he said, what he stood for, what he does for us, and who he is. But the other competitors, well, we might say that, for example, in terms of wokeism, we've got Marx, Karl Marx, the present secular utopian culture that is all about DEI is really a derivation of Marxist thought, Marxist utopian thought. And although it comes in a different package from the one we were used to when I was growing up, when it was all about economics and the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, now it's morphed into a cultural power struggle in which it's all about power relations and inverting them, a kind of celebration of the victimhood. But the intention is always, as it always has been with Marxism, to get rid of Christ, to get rid of Jesus, to get rid of Christianity. So we got Jesus and we got Marx. Who do we choose for neo-paganism? Well, I'm very pleased to say that one of the four of us, John Davison, is an expert and has written the most wonderful book on that. But let me choose for a moment Thor, the old Norse god Thor, with a bit of Nietzsche thrown in, if you know your Nietzsche. Because what we have here is a religion of a mixture of power and of superstition and magic. We are all religious creatures instinctively, and G.K. Chesterton was very good in saying that if you stop believing in the real God, you'll end up believing almost any God at all. And one of the attractive gods at the moment that's being presented, not in his historic packaging, but in his sort of instinctive character, is the neo-pagan god who deals with superstition and magic and power, a kind of raw, instinctive religion And the great difference between Thor and Jesus is that Jesus declared all people to be in the image of the Father. We're all sacred. This is the great gift that Christianity gives to the world. You love your neighbor. You don't destroy your neighbor. You don't kill your neighbor in the womb or out of it, because they are made in the image of God. Touch me and you touch God, the baby in the womb might say. With Thor, it's not the same at all. People are dispensable. It's gaining the outcome that you want to win the particular struggle you set your mind on. And perhaps the greatest difference is the dispensability of people. But we have a fourth figure too, along with Jesus and Marx and Thor, and it's Muhammad. Muhammad, of course, presents himself in a way that confuses a lot of people. So in our culture, people know very little about Islam, and they make a very serious mistake. They imagine it as a kind of Arabic version of Judeo-Christianity, and it absolutely isn't that. It's a very complex hybrid between being a fully fledged political system that has ambitions to be a totalitarian state, and a complex religion that is monotheistic in character and really doesn't like the Jews or the Christians, and so is set in perpetual antagonism towards them. Now, the difficulty is that people are not very well educated into the source of these figures that provide the ideas that are competing in our society. So one of the things we want to do in Reclaiming Christendom is to draw the map better, to make it clearer who Jesus is and who the Catholic Church is, to make it clearer what neo-paganism is really all about, to explain who Muhammad is, and ideally compare him with Jesus. Choose, by all means, between Muhammad and Jesus. I think if you could explain to people who they really are, there isn't any competition. And we can put that case at greater length later. And as for Marx, well, the problem with these utopians is they end up by killing a lot of people. So if you add together the people that the Marxists killed in the 20th century with Mao Zedong's 80 to 100 million and Stalin's 60 to 80 million, and you get a death toll that is horrifying. But again, our young people have no idea that when they practice DEI, what they're really doing is preparing the world for a totalitarian regime that will first of all lock people up for being disobliging and then kill them. That's the history of Marxism. So if this sounds a bit grim, the good news is that we are in love with Christendom and Christian culture. I mean, first of all, we're in love with Jesus. We're faithful Catholics and are very proud, in my case, doubly so because I'm a convert, very proud to be members of the church that Jesus founded. And we look at the very best things in European and Western Christendom and we celebrate them. Now, this is not to say the church has got everything right. If you have a Christian view of human nature, then you know perfectly well that, as Solzhenitsyn said, the dividing line between good and evil goes through every single human heart. We're all a great mixture. So, and the other thing, of course, is the more powerful the church is, then the more realistic the struggle with evil becomes. In other words, you can expect a great deal more corruption side by side with real holiness because one provokes the other. So here we are in Reclaiming Christendom, looking forward to offering our interpretation of what's going on at the moment. It's philosophical, it's religious, it's political, but above all, it's a struggle for the human soul. We're not here to clean the world up, either ecologically or politically. We're here, in fact, simply to be faithful to Jesus and his church. I must say that I'm sorry I've waited so long in my life to find myself part of such a well-resourced team as my colleagues, Justin Curian, John Davidson. These are of the most eminent and most competent people you could want to be associated with. And frankly, I'm immensely proud to be what I suspect is the junior member of the team. But here we are, the four of us together, We need to make a pitch for your support, obviously, but what we can promise is that with the support that we need, we'll be able to make a difference in reclaiming Christendom and being effective and obedient Catholics, because Catholics have always reconverted the world. As Chesterton said, we do not want a church that will move with the world. We want to be part of a church that moves the world. Convert the world or be converted. Well, we plan to convert it again with your help. That's the task. Thank you so much for being on board with us. We're very grateful for your support, and we look forward to offering some account of our developments and, God willing, our successes in due course. God bless you and thank you.